Hello, welcome to yet another episode of Beyond the Present podcast. My name is Daniel Morgan. I'm joined here live by Poujix from Canada. Hey there, my man. How's it going?
Life is great, Dan. How are you?
I am doing terrific. And we have the genius Govind Mohan back for yet another episode. So, Govind, how's it going?
Pretty good. Thank you very much.
So, Govind, first of all, we would like to actually inquire a bit more about your ideas regarding your plan, big data, that kind of stuff. So would you tell us right now a little bit of a background in terms of how the project has gone so far?
It's great. So just a little elevator pitch would be that we're trying to create a data sharing marketplace where people can sell their personal data to research companies so that they can come up with cures for diseases where they don't have enough data to do their research.
Wow.
So far, we have made some models that assess data quality so that nobody can just kind of enter like spammy or junk data. That is one of our biggest problems. So we have those models are doing really good. We've written some papers and put them on our website. So now we need to actually get to the business side of things and kind of
get that thing off the ground, basically.
Yeah, exactly. So
Very nice.
That's doing,
pretty excited about that one. It's very nice. And you talked about this business actually not long ago. Poujix had some great idea about some retail business kind of stuff like that. And Poujix, I want to ask you right now. I recently heard that Amazon has been doing some stuff similar to your ideas. Is that true?
I don't know exactly what Amazon is doing.
It's basically a store without any clerk or any, for example, seller, no cashier.
So it's similar to that. It's similar to that, but not quite there. So the idea that we were developing with a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, basically, is a little bit different, and that's has to do mainly for the payment method, and it's some sort of a replacement for POS systems.
Wow.
Because
patent, trademark. Nobody's going to steal the idea. That's our idea. All right. That's just if you want to steal our idea, go fuck yourself. Yeah. That's our idea.
Well, I didn't really talk about what the idea is. That's probably why.
And we're not going to share the details here. Let's be honest, man. It's just copyrighted, patent. You fucking pirates, motherfuckers. That's the whole point. We're going to keep it for ourselves. All right.
Communism is spreading out, apparently. Anyways.
Very nice. So, Howard, on that part, because I know about Govind's business, basically, what is your idea about your business?
Sorry, you're talking about me?
Exactly, that's right.
Oh, sorry. Oh, yeah. So the idea is that we want to simplify some of the payment methods for the customers as well as the retailers or like restaurants. It could be restaurants, retailers, whatever. And at the same time, remove the ideas of paper receipts altogether.
Wow.
So it's not like nobody keeps their paper receipts. If they want, they can get an email. If they want, they can ignore that. That's really up to them. Or save it on their mobile phone, on their Google Drive or something like that. It should be really paperless.
That's
basically
wonderful. Fewer trees are going to be cut, even though Canada is the biggest exporter of wood, I think. So it's pretty bad for Canadian economy, but it's pretty good overall. Fantastic. Now let's get started with the actual topic of today's episode, which is about dealing with uncertainty and turbulent times when things are uncertain. So let's first start off with Govind. It's been a while. I haven't talked to this guy here. So Govind, generally speaking, do you find it easy to deal with uncertainty? I mean, let's be honest. Psychologically speaking, some people find it a lot easier to deal with uncertainty and lack of clarity, and they're a lot more spontaneous, if you will. So do you personally find it easy to deal with uncertain situations that are not quite predictable or things aren't that easy to manage?
Well, I think, first of all, I've read a bunch of psychological research that was done in the last century, particularly by Carl Jung, into what he classifies as people who are intuitive and people who are observant. People who are intuitive tend to kind of favor or even want to be in chaos to try to figure out impose some kind of order in chaos. So I think it really comes down to like a personality type where some people just like chaos a lot more than others who just would rather stay away from it and have nothing to do with it. Me personally, yes, I think I do enjoy kind of going into chaos and then coming up with some interpretation of it, because that's where you come up with the most novel stuff, I think.
Somebody probably has a gambling habit or something, some weird stuff on the dark net, the deep net, that kind of stuff. I don't know. Basically, that's like, let's explore, see what's going on here. I'm intuitive. I can handle dark web.
I've been to the deep web a couple times, and I mean, it's pretty boring, really. But
that's right.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So, Poujix, how about you? Do you find it easy to deal with uncertainty? Are you more intuitive, as Govind mentioned, or do you tend to be a lot more observant and you like order?
Well, that's really hard to say because I think as we had these kind of discussions before, I'm sort of on the borderline. Honestly, I haven't thought about it in the context of what Govind just mentioned, so I probably need a little bit more time. But if I were to answer that intuitively, if you will, I probably am sort of on the borderlines kind of thing.
Dude,
so
you are answering the question about whether or not you're intuitive intuitively. What do you think you are?
So exactly. I mean, I have that quality for sure.
That's
but
right.
At the same time, I do like order as well. So I like to basically break it down into two categories. So some things are, I think, better for me personally. I like them to be ordered in a certain way. And some things I do also embrace intuition and chaos. Yeah.
Interesting. Very nice. So with that being said, let us just talk about how we can actually deal with this. But before that, are there any advantages at all in just dealing with situations where things are kind of unpredictable, chaotic, and turbulent? I mean, generally speaking, we have our own personality approaches towards these matters. However, let's be honest, there are certain pros and cons to both approaches. I mean, like, if you are in a situation where things are all ordered and organized and predictable, well, there are some advantages, but of course, things can get a little bit boring as well. So let's talk about some of the benefits of being in situations that are turbulent, that are unpredictable, and things aren't quite clear. So, Govind, regardless of your extreme gambling habit, probably, you and Ali probably go together to Las Vegas, by the way, I'm guessing. But still, from your perspective, what do you think about the benefits of dealing with such uncertain situations? Because usually when we find ourselves in such situations, we tend to panic at first and feel like, oh my gosh, why me? Why now? Why this? So generally, by changing our perception, perhaps things will get a lot easier. What do you think are some of the benefits and advantages of finding ourselves in very uncertain situations?
So, well, the thing about chaos, at least in my view, is it doesn't take a lot to generate chaos. In fact, chaos can be generated, maybe I'm talking more computationally, but I think it extends to real life as well. It doesn't take, a few simple rules can just create something completely chaotic.
Wow.
And how that applies to real life is that if we find ourselves in a perceived chaotic situation, we just need to find out those few simple rules and we'll kind of be on top of it. I guess it's about being able to come up with those rules, but that's I think something you get through practice.
Interesting. So you're saying that order is a lot harder to create and maintain than chaos is?
In a sense, but more so that chaos is just very easily generated.
And doesn't that mean that order technically will have higher value because of this? I mean, like, think about stone versus gold. If it's harder to get, of course, the value is higher. So don't you think that in that case, by your definition, order is actually a lot more valuable than chaos is?
I guess order is in some sense the rules that we put on chaos. So yeah, sure. I mean, order is what makes us understand chaos and make us not lose our shit. So
I mean, that's right now, Govind. If I right now go to your room, will I see a room that is as if a grenade has gone off and everything has just collapsed, or it's very neat and organized and I'm curious right now. Because I don't see right now on the camera, so maybe Poujix can tell me right now.
I can tell you that it's not as clean as I like to.
All right.
But,
Poujix, how about yourself? How's your room?
Well, I think I have to share the same answer with Govind.
Oh my goodness. So you guys, I know you're both intuitive and you love chaos and mess. I got it. Fantastic. But still, which one is easier, to have a messy room or to have a room that is well organized, clean and tidy?
Well, it's definitely easier to have a messier room because you don't have to push much.
That's right. No effort required. Just put the pizza box right in the corner.
But it doesn't mean that it's easier to live in. That's a different distinction here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So order is harder to create, but easier to live with. Whereas chaos is easy to create, but hard to live with. And that's precisely what I agree with you guys in this regard. Because I myself, I'm not a huge fan of chaos and disorder. I love order. I like organizations. I like tight and basically accessible leadership that allows all units of the same organization to work together efficiently. But still, let us talk about how we can actually deal with such situations. Now, you guys tend to be more intuitive, and you perhaps take pleasure from, let's call it, creative mess, if you will, or like genius or whatever it is. But because, let's be honest, Govind is a computer genius, and you are a physicist. I mean, like, literally. What was that? The famous, I think the most highly rated TV series right now is The Big Bang Theory, right? So your pals are there, basically. So the thing is this, you guys are a little bit higher on the IQ side. So, and I've heard a lot of things about people like you who generally tend to have a creative mess, if you will. But overall, let's think of somebody like me who perhaps values order a lot more and appreciates it. So what could people who might not find, let's say, chaos interesting do when they find themselves in such situations? Let's start with Govind.
I think that people like those would tend to, I don't know, freak out a lot more. But I think life, I mean, the process of life is kind of creates a balance in yourself, right? Once you reach that balance, you would be like, okay, I don't like this, but I'm kind of clear-headed enough to figure out what's going on and try to get out of it, get back into order, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. By talking about this matter, Poujix, what would you recommend somebody who might not appreciate chaos to actually do or say to himself or herself in order to effectively deal with it?
Right. I mean, before I answer that, I want to explain something, and it's a little bit physics, so I hope I'm not going to bore you guys. But
let's wait for it. Shelton, let's wait for it.
So the second law of thermodynamics is basically that with time, the entropy, which is basically some sort of chaos, increases, and that's very natural in the universe.
Wow.
So, and by that, some, including Stephen Hawking, basically in his new book especially, he defined life or living beings as systems that basically increase the entropy of their environments in order to decrease their own individual inner entropy to be able to sustain themselves.
Wow, that was a great sentence. So individuals increase the entropy and chaos in their environment in order to promote their own order, their inner order.
Yes, exactly.
Wow.
And that makes a lot of sense if you think, and that's not just individuals, any living being, like anything really. So that's really simple. So for example, we're using a lot of, say a monkey or a dog or something, not even people, using their metabolism to digest food and give an ordered sense of energy and, a system that runs very efficiently inside, so with minimal entropy. And then what happens is that they emit heat, they shed a lot, and so they're creating chaos in their environment, basically, in a sense.
Wow,
so
never thought about taking a shit as causing chaos in the environment, buddy. You changed my perspective regarding going to the bathroom from now on. Every single time I'll go to the bathroom, like, oh my goodness, I'm going to break the fucking chaos in the universe because I got to take a shit. Oh shit.
So this is not really exactly how the entropy works, but that was just to put an image of how it could make sense. But what I'm trying to say is that ultimately that's so. But now getting back to your question, basically, and answering that, ultimately what happens is that if you want order, you have to actively, that's probably one of the ways that Govind was talking about, that it's really easy to create chaos, is because naturally the universe is going towards increasing chaos.
Wow.
So if you want to create order specific to contained to a environment, then you have to actively work for it and remove that like a living being.
Exactly.
Actively making that effort to maintain its own order.
I mean, literally, think of like real estate. Creating, let's say, like when it comes to construction, right? When you want to construct and create a building, that could take 2-3 years sometimes for some very, hyper buildings.
Sure.
But destruction of that building could take literally seconds with a couple of, let's say C4s here and there, right? So I really believe that order is a lot more valuable than chaos. However, with all that being said, I also believe that if everything was ordered, then from my perspective, many things in life would be very tough to get. Competition would disappear. Life would become a lot less meaningful and probably a lot less interesting. So I'm not against chaos. And quite frankly, I love fishing in troubled waters every now and then because that really gives a great chance. So let's now talk about this attitude and this mindset that we can develop that will allow us to fish in troubled waters and be able to take the most out of each situation when it comes to very tough and unpredictable situations. So Govind, what do you think are some of the ways we can prepare ourselves to actually benefit from chaos and not become its victims?
So, going back to what I said earlier, I think this is a process that you kind of get better at the more you do it. So I think it's about just putting yourself into more chaotic systems, but in a controlled way. So like, I don't know, starting by like, I don't know, investing in the stock market. You know, probably not the best example. But,
that's a tough one. Been told a lot about this. Do you yourself invest in the stock market?
Well, I would say only, contrary to everything I've said so far, like super safe investments like index funds and all that stuff.
Precisely,
so,
man. I'm just like you. Like when it comes to investment, I always said either basically bonds or real estate. I don't like stocks. I don't know why. I mean, the idea of waking up the next morning and seeing that the value of my stocks have dropped by 5% just makes me nuts, like quite frankly speaking.
Yeah, but again, so directly in that context, in economics, there's a rule that in the long run, things kind of shift into the theoretical levels, right? So the short run is when you have all this crazy fluctuation, but in the long run, it's all about the actual value, which in a chaotic situation like that, if you realize that, it'll make you kind of stay level-headed, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, so
that's
I think
right.
that's a way of thinking it.
We're going to come back about chaos in personal life, but let's stick with chaos in general. So, Poujix, what do you think we can do to prepare ourselves to make the most of chaotic situations?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, like when you went to the stock market investing in general, so many people have said it, which I lost track of which person said what exactly, but this has been said quite a lot that people make money in turmoil situation in stock markets, meaning where everybody's panicking when this chaos is basically settling in. So having said that, as you mentioned, it's as much as order has its own benefits, chaos does too. It's an opportunity in a sense because a lot of people are not behaving proper to that chaos, so they can't deal with it. And basically, it's basically fishing in a dirty, muddy water, basically, right?
Wow.
So you have the chance, you have the opportunity to actually find a good fish in a muddy water. It's very possible, and that's where you start taking opportunities. But for that, you have to be equipped to deal with the chaos. First of all, to be able to appreciate that it's not lasting. It doesn't usually within the context of stock market or economy in general.
That's right.
It doesn't last forever, that chaos or that turmoil or that depression or whatever.
Point.
So that's the first notion. So that will allow you to calm down a little, not panic that bad, and you can basically start thinking. And as Govind mentioned, changes are very rapid, up and down in the short term, but in the long term, it will converge towards something very predictable.
Very nice. Two great points you mentioned. Number one, thinking long term and trying to see things in a long-term perspective. I think the reason that we freak out when we find ourselves in chaos is that we do not think long-term. And secondly, that was very nice you said, that no chaos lasts forever. And it's so true. We say no storm lasts forever. And all things are seasonal. So there is a bad season and there's a good season. And unfortunately, a lot of us, we make very bad decisions during those bad seasons, assuming that this bad season is going to last forever. In my basically experience in entrepreneurship and international business, haven't once have I seen, let's say, a situation in the economy that is very difficult to last forever. I mean, there's always going to be ups and downs, but that seasonal nature will never go away. And the same thing applies to investment and many other things. And Warren Buffett says, when others are greedy, be afraid. And when others are afraid, be greedy. That's exactly what summarizes this whole concept of trying to actually fish in troubled waters. But generally speaking, we are saying like think long term and know that it is not going to last forever. But in practice, sometimes it is a little bit difficult to actually do so. But but let's take a step back here and talk about chaos in our personal lives. Let's say some very basically predictable situations with our health or with our relationships. So, Govind, in these situations where things just take a bad turn and we are suddenly facing with a crisis out of nowhere that we have not prepared for, maybe a serious health problem, maybe just our partner says I'm leaving or whatever it is, how can we actually deal effectively with those situations that are uncertain?
So yeah, I think that's a great question because it kind of highlights there's this, well, I mentioned the stock market and chaos theory and all that stuff, so where there's predefined rules of what the long term is. But when it comes to our personal lives, there's what do you do in those situations? Well, what I would do is kind of, I don't know, at that point I'd say you need to trust your gut. That's there's an aspect of like your mind thinking about this, which maybe you're not even able to express in English, right? It's
Wow.
But it tells you to do something. I think that when all else fails, like I think that's the best you got.
Interesting. So before we go to Poujix here, let's talk about both cases. So I'm going to ask you one by one. First, think of a health issue. Tomorrow you wake up and then there's something wrong with your energy level or something, and you go to the doctor and boom, you just got diagnosed with something crazy. How would you deal with that fear and that sudden burst of angst in your life?
In my case, I would. I think some amount of it is like you got to prep yourself even when you're not in that situation. But I guess in that situation, I would. I don't know. I don't see myself freaking out, but I would just be kind of lost, I guess.
Probably look for some tips in the dark web or something, right? That's right. Very well. And how about a relationship? Tomorrow you wake up and you realize that your girlfriend, your partner, your wife, whatever it is just leaving. It's over. I'm done with you. Goodbye. And never call me again.
I cannot believe that voice is coming out of you. Sorry.
Trust me, man. It takes a lot of hard work to do that. Trust me.
That was a good voice. I'll give you that.
So what's your plan, buddy? What would you do in this case? She's leaving, she's angry, and she's not coming back.
I guess, I mean, that would be super shitty, but it's kind of like the same as you find out your company is not successful or you got a shit grade or something. You know, it's you pick yourself up and you kind of just go back from there. Because at the end of the day, you always have yourself, and I think it comes with knowing that.
Well, I love what you said, man. You always have. It's like, okay, go leave. I got my hands. I don't need you. Take care.
Yeah. Right?
I like it very well.
That's exactly what he meant. Sorta.
Very nice, very nice. I love it. Fantastic. But generally, you said it. You said you treat this as just another failure. You pick yourself up and you keep moving forward.
Yeah, because
love the
at
attitude.
the end of the day, you don't have anything more than yourself. And first you have yourself, and then you have everything else, right?
Fantastic. Bravo. Love it. Priorities. Let's move on now to Poujix. Both situations. Tomorrow you wake up and you have a health problem. Serious one. How would you deal with this one?
Yeah, I think, that would be really hard to say because, well, honestly, if I were to really honestly answer, I don't know how I would react, but I thought about the hypothetical situation, and I thought, as Govind mentioned, I think thinking ahead and just, thinking about it, that it actually can happen, can prepare you a little. Not being a pessimistic person, but just having the notion that health that you have currently is not for granted. And I want to also actually give two real life examples that a lot of people know. One of them is Tony Robbins. I don't remember what his diagnosis was at the time, but
it was a brain tumor, actually. It was a brain tumor.
Right, exactly. So if I'm not mistaken, if you remember exactly, like you can go ahead and correct me. But if I'm not mistaken, he mentioned that I treated this one as like any other problem in my life. I was like, okay, it requires, now it's immediate. It requires a lot of my attention and focus, and I'm going to go battle it. That's what he did, and that's where he.
And the tumor disappeared. Exactly, amazing.
Exactly.
Although, if you look at the size of that guy, his genes are just literally, they can fight any goddamn disease, man. Look at that guy. Seriously.
That's true. He's a very unique person.
I think, literally, the viruses approach his body like, yo, what up? Back off, man. Back off. Like, literally, like the white cells are kind of like that, basically. But generally, yes, great. Amazing, legendary man. One of my best and first, basically, mentors I've ever had. Truly legendary guy. And he believes that he can deal with every problem using the same approach, and he, of course, did it. It's wonderful. How about the next case? How about that?
Before that, I want to also, because Tony Robbins was a very special case in that sense that he fights everything off, I want to also give another example, and that being Stephen Hawking. And when he was diagnosed with his problem, he himself personally says, at first, obviously, I went through a lot of emotional turmoil, and eventually when I came out on the other side, I was like, okay, then it only means that whatever I wanted to achieve, I just have a limited, tiny amount of time. So everything was prioritized for me already because I was diagnosed that I have 2 years to live. So I had to dump everything that I didn't really matter and focus on what I wanted to do. And that's how he picked up his thesis and in his PhD. And that's, well, he lasted longer, of course, than 2 years. So he could do much more. But then he became very focused. And I think that's very important. Sorry.
That's what you would have done as well. You would have become focused.
I hope that I would at least.
Fantastic. Yes. How about the next case? Let's say a relationship problem.
Yeah, that's also similar. Like as Govind mentioned, that's actually sort of simpler because you know that you have you, as Govind mentioned. Because with the health problem, you might actually die and you don't even have you. So that's in a sense simpler, but I would have to agree with Govind in this case. It's like any other problem, like a bad grade in school. If you're a middle school kid, the bad grade means like somebody dumping you to you at that point. What I'm trying to say, it has a very large value to you at the time because that's your world, and you get upset, but at the same time you have to say, okay, this is it. I got a bad grade. It's beyond me now. It's in the past. Now I can focus on what is in my hand, and that's the future grades.
Quite amazing. And don't worry, guys, I won't be a jerk, and I'm not going to tell you what would you do if you both had a health problem and your girlfriend was leaving you, but don't worry. That's maybe for another time. That's something else. So let's just now, since we've talked about this issue so far, let us now try to actually create a solution, a step-by-step path that will allow us to overcome from the damages caused by chaos and bring things back to order. So, Govind, what are your own routines that allow you to bring your life back to order after the storm is gone?
I think very discreetly make a jump from chaos to order at some point because, chaos is part of my creative process, but if I stay there for too long, shit gets weird. So
exactly.
Something as simple as cleaning your room and then starting from scratch again, just organizing all the stuff in your, some things are nagging the back of your mind, like I need to buy this one thing that, say, makes my routine easier, like, I don't know, a new bottle of shampoo or something like that.
Wow.
Just go out and do it, right?
Never realized shampoos have so much therapeutic impact.
Right?
That's right.
No, but I think it's, even more generally, I think it's the small things. Just all those, a combination of all those small things just bring a little bit back more stability back into your life.
Fantastic. So 2 things I learned from you. If you have serious trauma in life, do 2 things. Clean your room and buy shampoos. A lot of them. A lot of shampoos. Fantastic. And now let's move on to Poujix. What about you? What can you do generally? What are your routines that allow you to get your life back into order?
One of the things that Govind mentioned was cleaning your environment. I think that actually has a very symbolic effect on our brain. Meaning when you start actually organizing your environment, your physical environment, it immediately starts organizing your mind. At least it does to me, and I believe that.
To me as well. And I also, what I also do? I also try to actually arrange manage my files on my devices. For example, I try to delete the useless files, put the, let's say icons here and there, and organize my digital devices as well. They all have the same psychological impact.
Exactly. And again, as you mentioned, I've heard from a lot of people that they say this helps them a lot. And as you mentioned, computer files, physical environments, I don't know, my calendar, stuff like that. So it has an indirect impact, but at the same time, sometimes if I want to tackle stuff more directly, I would actually go and create a plan. For example, if I have a lot of courses that I have to study for, or a lot of meeting I have to attend or whatever, so I would basically go and break it down into smaller segments of time. Okay, I'm going to do from here to here, very specific, from 1:30 to 1. So 2:15, I'm going to do this and exactly go according to that. And I try to push myself to maintain that aggressively to bring order back into my life. Basically.
Fantastic.
It
Bravo.
might be a little bit stressful at first, but
I do agree completely, and I'm just with you on that one. You need to bring order back after chaos. Know that chaos will not last forever, and more importantly, there are always opportunities in chaos that are not available in simple, easy, regular, routine situations. I do agree with you guys. Now, of course, we're out of time here, so let's try to wrap up the show and reach a conclusion. So, Govind, after all that we talked so far about the concept of dealing with uncertain situations and chaotic environments and coming out as winners, let's talk now about the final comment and conclusion. What are your final thoughts? How do you summarize this entire discussion for our listeners?
Well, I would say that chaos might be perceived as something bad, but it's a source of. I think it's really a source of something that makes us human at a basic level. But I think at the same time, if you stay there for too long, it starts taking a pretty negative impact on you. So you need a healthy balance of chaos and order in your life.
Fantastic. I agree completely. Poujix, what is your final comment?
I think that healthy balance is amazing. Like, a lot of people think chaos is absolute negative, and that's not really true. It's just a balance of both that is... that balance might be different from person to person, I suppose. A perfect balance, like 70%, 30%, if you will. But ultimately, there is a balance of both.
Fantastic. 70-30. Like it. Kind of cool. How about like 65-40? Is there like, can we negotiate the terms here?
Yeah, that could be.
We could agree something. Fantastic. Bravo. And
if
of course,
I'll be able to
negotiate a better, easier percentage here, basically. Pretty cool. Now, that's all the time we have for, of course, and I would like to thank all of our listeners, plus you, Govind, as well as Poujix. Thanks for both of you guys for your great ideas. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. And of course, that's all the time we have for. If you're now listening to us, let's say on iTunes or on Google Play, please do us a favor and do a ranking. It doesn't take that long. If you actually leave a review, it'll be even better. There's just a couple of paragraphs, maybe a couple of lines. Oh, God, just send a like LOL or cool, whatever. Just put something there as a review, and that will help us reach a wider audience. Thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Daniel Mulgid, and this was Beyond the Present podcast. Thank you very much, and see you guys soon.